Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of CoinsCapture Media, where we bring you conversation with leaders, innovators, policymakers, and visionaries shaping the future of blockchain, Web3, digital assets, and emerging technologies. I'm your host, Jetso Allen, and today we have a very special guest joining us. We are honored to be joined by Dr. Carolina Rios, an internationally recognized legal expert specialized in blockchain, digital assets, tokenization, regulatory frameworks, and emerging technologies with extensive experience on advising founders and enterprises, governments, and Web3 organizations at the forefront of some of the most important regulatory and strategic discussions. So, as Web3 continues to mature and institutional adoption accelerates, understanding the legal and regulatory landscape has become more important than ever. From tokenizing to and stablecoins to AI-powered digital ecosystem and global compliance framework, the decision being made today will shape the future of tomorrow and industry for the years to come. So in today's conversation, we'll be exploring the future of Web3 regulation, real-world asset tokenization, the rise of stablecoins, AI and blockchain convergence, and the UAE's emergence as a global leader asset hub, and practical legal guidance for founders and investors. So, and what the future of Web3 could look like by 2030. So whether you're a founder, investor, developer, policymaker, or a simply passionate about the future of digital innovation, this episode is packed with valuable insight. Dr. Carolina, welcome to CoinsCapture Media. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Okay, so Jetso, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really happy to be today with you. My name is Carolina Rios. I am the CEO and founder of Saja Legal Consultants, 10 years in the market. And finally, I moved to Dubai 3 years ago. We are helping founders and institutions to understand better blockchain technology and launch their service and products cross-border jurisdictions. So really happy to have the discussion and to later on having the questions from the audience.
Let's dive into your journey into Web3 and digital assets itself. So you worked across different international law, government relations, and blockchain. So what inspired your transition into Web3?
I think for me, the transition from the ordinary law to blockchain was very organic. I was at the time finishing my PhD in international law from Career University. I was searching for my PhD dissertation, and then I think I was lucky to be introduced to a friend who worked in the Bitcoin Center in Korea. So when I read the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper, I was fascinated to see the significant changes for how we understand relations and transactions between parties. So I found the relevance for the law. So since then, I dedicated my time to first research into what was the technology, what was the meaning, and the implications for the regulatory framework. And then later on, when I finished my PhD in international law, I started to work full-time in South Korea with projects, government organizations, and then later on I moved here to Dubai 3 years ago. So it has been really a rewarding journey into the industry.
But having worked with both regulators and entrepreneurs, you've been there with both of them. So what differences do you observe in how they view the Web3 in general?
It's actually a very, very interesting question, because I believe when we compare the different jurisdictions, like as I mentioned before, I am original from Colombia. I worked for the Colombian president for around 5 years, and then later on I moved to Korea, and then now here I have the experience to work in still and regulatory framework here in the UAE. And I see that definitely each country has their own regulation and their own approach to virtual assets. So for example, if we go to explore Asian, the regulatory framework is much more protective. I think UAE understood very earlier what was exactly the mission of regulators in the industry, and that is the reason why they are becoming, if they are not actually the world hub for Web3. And then I think Latin America, of course, and in general Americas have their own approach to crypto industry. So differences are huge, but also this is how each market is reflected towards the global markets in crypto.
So what is the biggest misconception founders usually have about crypto regulations?
Yeah, so I think the biggest misconception is regulation comes after the launch. So usually working with funders and entities all across the world, I try to insist that actual regulation is the first, because it's what enables your business model, what actually makes a safe relationship with your clients. It's what actually enables you also to escalate in a project or create new projects once you have been launched a service. So understanding that regulation is not an obstacle, but actually a tool that you can strategize, I think is the biggest misconception among founders, from my experience.
So apart from being misconception as well, I think what are the most common legal mistake which they make during the token launches? I think I've seen a lot of founders making some of the other mistakes on the legal side. So what do you think is the most common one?
I think the most common mistake is thinking that one regulatory formula will work for all the ecosystem. So usually in my experience, it's very hard to say that you can launch and you can operate a full ecosystem in crypto, leveraging your operations from only one jurisdiction. Usually, as you see, the crypto regulation is very fragmented. We have so many options across the world, but understanding exactly how you take the best part of those jurisdictions in your token launch is very important. Other misconception, of course, is that you can somehow skip regulatory oversight depending about where you are, forgetting that where the actually token holders are based also has a significant impact on your regulatory strategy. And I believe once again, as I mentioned to you, do the token launch before thinking about the legal strategy is, I think, one of the most common mistakes among funders.
And since we are talking about this, so what do you think, at what stage should these type of startups begin engaging with legal counsel?
From the very beginning. I believe, especially if you have the clarity as a founder, you have the clarity that you want to go into a token issuance, or you want to launch a Web3 service or product, definitely you have to involve legal expert in crypto. Is not just a lawyer, but also an expert in the crypto legal field, because then it helps you to understand better what are the stages after the token launch, and also is this support and assistance across all the process. So legal matters do not only end at the beginning just with a few documentation, but also a strategy that across the first 2-3 years is very important to have very close conversation with the founders and your attorney. But I believe, as I said to you, from day one, they should have that support.
That's from the day one then. So why has UAE become one of the world's leading jurisdiction for the Web3 businesses? And how do these VARA, ADGM, DIFC and RAK DAO differ from one another?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. And this is something that when particularly I was drafting my doctoral dissertation in crypto regulation, I saw that in general, UAE understood the message very early. What was the message? To understand that the transformation of the legal system comes from just purely regulated for your domestic market to actually regulate towards the world. I used to mention that is the transformation of regulation and regulation as a service. In reality, regulations or regulators now are not regulated for only their country, but are regulated for the world, for being enough attractive to create economic growth, inviting innovators and founders and investors and also institutions that do not find this regulatory support, this regulatory understanding domestically, and then they need to go to other jurisdictions. I think this is a very clear example for example, founders in Asia that they don't have this regulatory answer in comparison with the sophistication of the products and services. So of course they have to find any other jurisdiction. So going back to your question, I think UAE understood that message very early. This is the first reason. So they started in 2018. So we are almost 8 years, almost actually a decade, building this regulatory framework that is so fruitful now and place UAE in, if it's not the first, it's really one of the most important regulations around the world. But I also think that is a very particular jurisdiction. If you see here, we have this coexistence between different regulators. So you have ADGM, you have VARA, you have the DIFC, you have RAK DAO that actually now is Innovation City. You have other free zones that really help clients to, or help founders and institutions to cater different regulatory frameworks to their needs, to their expectations, to their operations, especially understanding as well that those founders, projects, institutions have built something abroad. It's not just an isolated ecosystem. It's actually a global ecosystem that you can leverage here from the UAE. So I think that are the particular characteristics that make UAE unique in the field.
Okay, so how does the UAE compares with jurisdictions such as Singapore, Hong Kong, Switzerland, South Korea and United States?
It's very different. It's very different because once again, for example, South Korea doesn't have a specialized regulatory framework for virtual assets. They just included some descriptions or some definitions of virtual assets into their regulation, but they haven't created really like a dedicated regulatory framework for crypto. So that is one of the problems that we have in case of, or in comparison, for example, to founders in South Korea, that they don't find precisely this response in the regulatory framework to escalate, to operate, to create and launch services and products. Singapore has a very different case because despite that they have a very sophisticated regulatory framework, when you see, in fact, there are a lot of hurdles and a lot of obstacles for you to go through the license. So South Korea doesn't have the framework. Singapore has the framework, but in the application you find, as I said to you, these hurdles that makes for applicants very uncertain if they could go to the other side. It means they can find the license, they can open the bank account, they can create procedures, and they can launch. And in fact, for the past 2 years, I'm having advising clients that are exactly in the process of migrating their companies, exchanges, broker-dealers, and other service providers, that precisely because this turn or this changing of the position of the Singapore authorities in relation to virtual assets makes them to exit or exile the country. In other comparison, for example, about UAE, we mentioned already that you have different multiple regulators, you have also different approaches, you have also different verticals that you can adjust in those different categories of virtual assets. That is very important. And finally, US is regulated for US. I think it's a very specific flavor and color of the regulation that, of course, is very attractive because the American market is huge itself. The market size is big enough for saying that they have enough projects to be hosted by this regulation. But smaller countries as UAE, as Singapore, you could say, for example, also Hong Kong and other countries have more difficulties to bring this attractiveness of the market if they don't have a very strong regulatory framework that not only answer the needs of the domestic market, but also other type of projects and propositions that come from other countries or foreign countries.
That's a good answer then. So now we come back to another question related to RW itself. So is RW tokenization truly transformative or currently overhyped? And what type of asset classes are seeing the strongest adoption today?
Real world asset tokenization is one of the most significant adoptions, or especially that provides finally the missing piece into a global expansion of blockchain markets. So explaining better my idea, currently the market penetration of crypto is only from the 7% of the global population. So if you think more than 90% of still the global population is waiting for adopting any type of crypto assets, right? But this transition is not easy. This transition comes with more sophistication of products and services, of course, regulations that helps investors and institutions to provide or do launches and services in a more safe way, a steady way, and clear and certain way. But also the need of the reality of the cross-border transaction. So what I see is that when we are creating regulations that really understand the language of tokenization of real world assets, then we allow what we call like global liquidity tools. And then, of course, this could be transformative. That in general, for example, if we are talking about the tokenization of bonds, equities, and other traditional markets, they work in a very different way. In many occasions, depending about the country, for example, they will require qualification of the investors. So the democratization of finance is possible through the tokenization of real world assets. But I believe that also narratives currently are too focused on just a few type or use cases. Real world assets, for example, in real estate, I believe is now the most natural and organic use case for tokenization of virtual assets. For tokenization of real world assets, I think there are other more interesting, appealing cases, for example, as credits, that they already have all the infrastructure that is required for the tokenization. I think there are other assets that never have thought to be tokenized, and there is a possibility, for example, mobiles, for example, cars, and for example, other type of different assets. And in general, I think use cases can go that far as creativity, which is very interesting, because when you have traditional markets, of course, they are capturing to the domestic liquidity, the domestic just markets in general. But when you are talking about real world asset tokenization, you are really talking about a global market access to all those type of assets. So it's very interesting. I definitely think I won't say this is the future. I think it's already happening. The investments in real world asset tokenizations are near $300 billion US, and the increase was dramatically since 2025. And then for 2026, we are expecting maybe 400% grow in these numbers. So it's really significant. It's really happening.
So that's some interesting insights on the RWA. So at the same time we are talking about RWA, there is another concept which is still more adopted as well, which is stable coins. So now my question is, why are regulators increasingly focused on stable coins right now? And could stablecoin become a major alternative to traditional payment rails?
Absolutely. Let me mention a story. It's very interesting. As I talk at the beginning of our conversation, I have been for 10 years in the crypto market, and then my first steps in the crypto industry was when I worked as a legal intern for the Bitcoin Center in Korea. I'm talking to you about 2016, 2017, 2018 when I was there. And I remember, especially from Singapore, in our case, South Korea. From Singapore, we had a massive amount of projects talking about stablecoins. Stablecoins for payments, I think, was one of the first use cases when the world started understanding blockchain technology and the power of blockchain technology. However, what is very interesting is that almost 10 years need to pass to then we be able to talk about stablecoins in general, and markets and engagements and conversations and regulators in the same table with institutions and payment rails and all those things. And the reason why is because regulation was not there. So it's very interesting, because if regulation still doesn't create clarity about what is the relationship between these tokens and those payments and the token holders, in between you have nothing. Just you have a platform, you have technology, but the real enabler is regulation. So for your question, absolutely, programmable money via blockchain technology and protocols are changing dramatically how we transact, how we interact, how we do cross-border transactions is definitely cheaper, is definitely faster, is definitely more democratized, as I mentioned to you. But also is very important because these unlocked many opportunities for payment corridors. I know that currently we have this huge impact of USDT or in general stablecoins that are pegged to US dollar. But I think the real power is when other type of alternative currencies. I won't say alternative in the real sense of but just in the sense that currencies that do not have the global power of the USD, but still are important, for example, for certain regions. So we are talking about Africa, we are talking about, in general, for example, Gulf countries. When the creation of stablecoins allows to create a monetary corridor or payment corridor that makes much easier payments for trade or international finance and all those kind of things. So all those discussions are very important because as the market create more opportunities, also this regulatory clarity is absolutely essential.
Perfect. So what are the legal questions you ask when advising a new Web3 founder?
Oh, well, there's a lot of questions, and it's very interesting because yesterday I was exactly sending a questionnaire to one of my new clients, and I had, without even the first call, we found 17 questions for them. So 17 questions. Why 17 questions? Goes across different verticals of different groups. First, where are the founders from? What is the nationality of the founders? Where the operation of the platform are happening? Where are, if they already decided in the jurisdiction of the token, if they are going to mint the token, or they are going to create any other type of creation or issuance of the token. This is very important. For example, what is the blockchain that you're going to use is absolutely essential, and the majority of people really don't talk about that. But as I said before, as much sophistication you are finding in the crypto industry, have clarity about what is the chain you are using for this tokenization is absolutely essential. So of course, what is the blockchain that you are using for the tokenization? Also, where are the investors? If you are creating, of course, an investment system or investment project, where are the founders? Where are the investors? How you are going to onboard those investors, the procedures, and definitely, if you already drafted the white paper, the tokenomics, platform itself has some documents that you need to have clarity because it's the relationship between you and your token holders, like terms and conditions, privacy policy, codes of conduct. So in general are a lot of questions, but those questions are very important to understand. What is the extent and length, and also what are the alternatives for the team to create a solid legal architecture for what they want to build.
Perfect. So that's so insightful for the new founders as well. So if you were to build a new Web3 company today, so what sector would you focus on?
Wow, this is very interesting. I perhaps go for real world asset tokenization. I think this is fascinating. I believe I won't try to go into the real world assets as a real estate, for instance, because there are too many legal asymmetries across jurisdictions. Otherwise, my investors are only here in the UAE, that is very sophisticated, but when you go beyond, you don't really find this regulatory clarity. So it's a very difficult real world asset tokenization project to launch. But I definitely go into the field thinking about some more non-traditional or alternative type of investments in the field.
Perfect. That sounds interesting. So having worked with investors, governments, founders, exchanges, tokenization project, and many ecosystems globally. So what do you believe the Web3 industry will look like by 2030? And what are most people getting wrong about the future today?
Okay. I believe that in just a few years, I don't know if you have heard expressions of experts that says that Wall Street will be built in Ethereum, and I strongly believe that. I strongly believe that all traditional instruments, financial instruments, and even non-financial instruments are going to be built in decentralized blockchain. I believe that won't be those blockchains that repeatedly have technological problems or breaks or something, but actually the largest, more solid, more steady in terms of the technology layer for supporting those services. But as I said to you, permissionless, I think decentralized and having more access. I believe, for instance, that the extension of DeFi products and services are going to be massive. Why? Because in many occasions, I think regulations, instead of being enabler, they constrain, in certain cases, innovation. So I believe also that DeFi protocols and services in general have a very important transformation for the coming years. And I think one of the misconceptions that people get into is that, for example, crypto is that the market is currently not in the best shape. However, once again, as I said to you, for 10 years in the market, I saw the same stuff or the same situation for many occasions, and always the market find a way. Why? Because crypto and blockchain solve fundamental problems in society. Fundamental problems for decentralization, for inclusion, for democratization, for transparency, that outside of the blockchain technology actually doesn't exist. So the world really needs blockchain and blockchain market. So yeah, I think this is pretty much what I see for the coming years.
That's a fantastic explanation. That's it. Thank you, Dr. Carolina. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise with our audience. Today's discussion provided valuable insights and into the evolving world of blockchain regulation, tokenization, digital assets, and broader future of the Web3 as well. So as the industry continues to mature, conversations like these will help bridge the gap between innovation, compliances, and real-world adoptions as well. And to our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. And we hope that this episode has provided practical knowledge and a deeper understanding of the opportunities and challenges the next generation of the digital economy. And if you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to subscribe to CoinsCapture Media and share this episode with your network, and follow us across the social media platform for more interviews and industry leaders, founders, innovators, and regulators, and innovators across the world. So you can find more information about Dr. Carolina Rios and her work in the links provided in the description. So this is Jetso Anlin on behalf of CoinsCapture Media signing off. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carolina.